Welcome, everyone, to the Fandom Podcast Network special presentation of Time Warp, where we cover the movies and pop culture of an entire year. And these year's episodes of Time Warp, we're going to cover the year of 1990 of pop culture, which includes, of course, the movies, TV series, music, and notable news events as well. The 1990 movies, pop culture, and events are celebrating their 35th anniversary. Welcome to Time Warp 1990. And this month, we are talking about June of 1990. 90 is 35 years ago. It's a lot of stuff starting to come up, and it's just we're just moving from the 80s into the 90s. Some stuff in 1990 feels 80s still. Some stuff in 1990 is debatable. We'll talk about that. But we are, of course, here on the Fandom Podcast Network. And if you are watching on YouTube there, go ahead and give us a little hit there on the QR code on the screen. It takes us right to our website. Support us there. But before we move any further, I want to introduce, of course, my co-host here. And as always, we like to, of course, bring to the table the queen of movie foo, Lacey Adderhold. Hello.
Hello.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So we're going to have Kyle on here soon. He's in the middle of a couple things. He'll join us when he can. But Lacey, I want to ask you real quick, back to 1990, summer of 1990. Do you remember where you were?
Summer 1990. Well, I would be 17. 17. Well, I'd be 16, about to be 17 in July. So next pod, I will be turning 17 in that month. So probably the movies a lot. Yeah. Because I worked in a movie theater back then. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was 19 going on 20, and I was starting to really dive into movies. I was renting a lot of movies, being part of the whole midnight movies thing, if that, when that started to happen. And it was really kind of starting to become a big thing. And so in 1990, and I was living by myself, was I lived by myself at this time? Yeah, I think I was just moving out on my own. I had a roommates after moving out of the house from my parents in 88. So I was on my own in this tiny one-room apartment, and I was there for like 7 or 8 years, but it was in walking distance of video stores, of movies. And so, yeah, it was good. So,
and what city were you in at that point?
Santa Barbara. I was still in Santa Barbara.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So
nice.
I was taking advantage of it, and I was starting to play in a band too. So I had other interests, but movies, I was still doing the movies. So.
With your long flowing hair,
the long hair, long waist-length hair. Yeah. Well, this is Time Warp, new movies in 1990, of course, the television series. And of course, recently on Time Warp here on the Fandom Podcast Network, we recently done, well, not recently, but a couple years ago, we did a great look at the Buffy the Vampire Slayer TV series. We looked at Raiders players in movies and TV. If you're a fan, of course, sports, that may pique some interest to you. But last year, we did a deep dive in 1984 because everything was celebrating its 40th anniversary. And that was a lot of fun. A lot of big hits in 1984. We enjoyed that very much. But we are now doing 1990, and we are about halfway through the year. So go back and check those shows. A lot of good discussion going on there. And coming up soon, of course, we have July of 1990 and August, and more to come. But we are going to be talking about June of 1990. We've got some interesting hits here in this one. So, but before we do any of that, though, we have to find a way to get to 1990. So first, let's take a step back into time. Let's fuel up that DeLorean with the flux capacitor, slingshot around the sun aboard a captured Klingon bird of prey, Star Trek reference. Take a step into that blue police box or phone booth. Step into that quantum leap accelerator, or my favorite, take a dip in a hot tub time machine with the Chernobyl. As we travel back to 1990, we're going to remind you what was happening in pop culture, sports, politics, television, and of course, the movies of 1990. So what's happening in 1990? A lot of stuff. George Bush is the president, George H.W. First class stamp is 25 cents, Lacey. What is it now, like $1 something? I can't remember. I was trying to remember what that was.
I think it just went up again. It's like $137.
Yeah, I just buy we all buy the forever stamps, but
Yeah.
they don't really have like the price on them anymore. It's weird. Average income was about almost $29,000. A new house was about $123,000. A loaf of bread, we always like to compare that, $1.29, and the movie ticket, the average movie ticket was $4.23. Lacey, does that add up right? Since you were working in the movie theater at the time.
Oh yeah, well that's the reason I worked in the movie theaters is because you got free movies back then.
Hell yeah,
you got free movies, and also you got to see the movies like weeks before they came out because back then they would send the trunks, the steel cases with the actual film in it.
So you guys got the little pre-sneak peek.
Now, well, because we had to put things together because you had to put all the reels together, and then you had to check it to make sure you didn't put anything in the wrong order.
I remember that because I had two hookups at two of the many theaters that we have here in Santa Barbara. I had one at one of the big ones, and one I'm not going to name names though, but one of them I was able to get in, and the other one I was also able to get into like a free movies. But one of those two though, I got to sometimes join the employee screening, so that was always kind of fun. So, Well, we've talked a little bit about back of 1999 and Detroit Pistons. They won NBA championships. 49ers won the Super Bowl. Edmonton Oilers won, of course, the Stanley Cup. Cincinnati Reds won the World Series. But we have some other notable news here, world news here.
I'm just like, sports things. Okay. I have no idea.
Lacey's like, sports ball.
Sports is so bad for me. Yeah. I'm so bad at the knowledge of sports is not in my brain.
Well, some of the worldly news here is June 2nd, the Lower Ohio Valley tornado outbreak spawns 88 confirmed tornadoes in Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, and Ohio, killing 12. 37 tornadoes occur in Indiana, eclipsing the previous record of 21 during the 1974 super outbreak. So maybe this inspired Twister, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing is, that they had storm chasers and people who were trying to, I mean, it's not a new field. They've been trying to figure out how to get that early warning system forever.
I just like how they call it an outbreak. I thought that was funny. So June 13th, the Cold War, the destruction of the Berlin Wall by East Germany officially starts 7 months after it was opened the previous November. Enter Hasselhoff, right? He did a concert or something, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So
I got nothing.
Yeah. June 17th through the 30th, Nelson Mandela tours North America, visiting 3 Canadian and 8 U.S. cities. You know something about that, Lacey?
Yeah, one of those cities was Atlanta. He spoke at Georgia Tech.
You were there?
Yeah, at the I don't know. They didn't call it the Coliseum. It was like the Georgia Tech field, maybe. They don't, but it was like an open Coliseum.
Nice.
Like the big stadium. Yeah.
That's cool. You got to see.
And it was really cool because one of my best friends at the time, her parents were from South Africa. Her mom was from Cape Town, dad was from Joburg, and so we had all of the stories. Like we had, they were first generation in the U.S. So, yeah.
Well, the last bit of news, June 22nd, Cold War related, Checkpoint Charlie is officially dismantled. There's a lot of history there. If you don't know what that is, I believe there's some movies that include Checkpoint Charlie. Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, I think, was one of those more recently. But yeah, it was it's a interesting place if you had to serve there. So yeah, but let's get into some toys, tech, and product, guys. All right, first thing that we have is the toys. We have the WWF action figures before they were WWE. I got a picture here. I pulled offline here of a signed Hulk Hogan version of this. And it looks like one of the wrestlers up there, I think he was a former governor of Minnesota, Jesse the Body Ventura. I believe that's a picture of him up there, or an actor that looks like him. Now, Lacey, were you into wrestling at all?
Is he chewing gum in that photo?
Don't know. It looks like he's holding up his fist.
Is he the one who was in They Live?
No, that's Rowdy Piper.
Dang
Jesse
it.
the Body Ventura was in Predator and also in The Running Man.
Gotcha. So that should answer your question about whether or not I was into wrestling.
Okay, so that's a big no there.
Like I knew who I knew who Ric Flair was, and I knew who Hulk Hogan was because Ric Flair, I don't know if he lived in our neighborhood.
Well, Hulk Hogan, everyone knew who he was because he was in TV
but
and
Ric
movies.
Flair would often be at the Kroger near my house.
Yeah,
I don't know if he lived in our neighborhood or what, or if he just was like visiting. But he was occasionally you would run into Ric Flair.
Gotcha.
He's the one that had the shock of white hair, right?
I think so. Yeah, he was the guy that went woo, if I remember correctly. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but I'm not an expert. Kyle, if Kyle was here, he'd be able to correct me. So
gotcha.
Next, we have Disney's Minnie and Me, Songs Just for Girls, featuring singer Krista Larson. Minnie and Me was a 1990s merchandise branding program from the Walt Disney Company featuring Minnie Mouse in her childhood days. With the same continuity of Topolino comics, her companions within the merchandise included Daisy Duck, Clarabelle Cow, Penelope Penny Pooch, Patty Pony, TJ Turtle, Heather Hippo, Lily Lamb, Minnie's dog, Fifi the Pecky, and Daisy's kitten Trixie. So these are, of course, were targeted towards preteen girls. Around 1991, Disney made 20 books titled The Best Friends Collection. On September 18th, the 1990, the Minnie and Me Songs Just for Girls CD was released featuring child vocalist Krista Larson. What if Krista Larson went on to do other things? Kind of curious about that.
Don't recognize that at all. You know, it's funny if you look. I don't know if you're watching this. The photo looks odd. I mean, the picture of the doll. Is it sitting on like a little miniature toilet? Like what is it?
Well, keep in mind, no, this is actually, I had to find pictures of this toy loose, and some of these are just eBay pictures and stuff like that. So that might be a more of a stripped down version. Is that maybe not the right word to use, but you know what I mean? So some of the accessories may not have been with it and stuff like that.
Just a little bit. It looks a little flat, a little sad.
So everyone remembers Hungry Hippo, right? Remember those? I had that game. Well, there was also another kind of version called Crocodile Dentist, is a game made for young children, first published by Milton Bradley in 1990. A smaller travel version of the game was released in 93 and is currently being produced by Winning Moves. The game was conceived by Robert B. Fuhr, who later created Gator Golf and many other toys and games. The goal of the game is to press down on the plastic teeth from the crocodile toy's mouth. Earlier versions require the player to instead remove the tooth with a pair of pliers. This was changed to avoid having small loose parts to make the game more accessible to younger children. If the quote sore tooth is pressed or removed, the mouth will snap shut and lunge towards whoever pulled the sore tooth. And the person who caused the mouth to shut is the loser. The mechanism of pushing the tooth down was initially only used in the travel version, which lacks the ability to lunge, but was later incorporated into the full-size version of the game. So one of these has a sore tooth. If you look at the picture, he's kind of cute there, Lacey. You remember this at all?
Okay, this toy is definitely something that caused a lot of Gen X, well, I guess not Gen X, they'd probably be Gen Z at this point, right? Because if you're a child in the 90s. Yeah. But that's just like anti-dentist right there. Yeah. The crap out of the kids, you hit the sore tooth and it bites you and lunges at you. Like, that's not cool.
Yeah, not fun. I would not have played with that.
No, so. I don't like the dentist anyway. Like, you put me on a plane between Woody Allen and a dentist, and that's my nightmare.
Well, let's get into some celebrity news here in the 90s. And I always start with the celebrity birthdays and see if you can remember any of these. Sometimes these make you feel old. In June, we had celebrities' birthdays such as Brittany Curran, who's an actress, Lauren Sosha, Tristan Mays was an actress in Gula Gula Island in Private, Aaron Taylor Johnson, English actor. We kind of know him. He's done quite well, Kick-Ass and Craven and Savages and a bunch of other stuff. You know him. He's
Bullet Train, man.
Yeah, Bullet Train. Yeah, I forgot. That was a good movie. I got to rewatch that. Bullet Train. Denzel Whitaker, actor for All That, Hannah Montana. Ashley Birch, voice actress for Adventure Time, OKKO, and Let's Be Heroes. Chuko Modu is an actor. Also, we have Jacoby Wysocki, an actor. Jasmine Richards, Canadian actress, was in Naturally and Sadie. And Nick Purcell was from the actor The Troop. Now, when it comes to deaths, we have one notable one here. We had Jack Guilford. Jack Guilford died at the age of 82. He's born on June 4th. Actor. He was famous for the old Cracker Jack commercials, if anyone remembers those. So, and he was, I think he's been in a lot of other acting as well, but more known as the Cracker Jack commercials. I miss those Cracker Jack prizes. They were so fun when I was a young kid.
I always ended up getting the compass.
Yeah.
It's cool until you have 13 compasses.
It was always like, sometimes you get like some dumb sticker or something like that too.
Yeah.
I remember that. So yeah.
I always wanted the ones that had the little holes, and you had the 3 or 4 little balls, and you had to put the balls in all the holes.
Yeah.
That's a coin.
That took skill, not only that, but it took time to do that. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, next we have 1990s music news. So let's go ahead and hit that. I remember this well. June news. Here's some music news here for you guys. June 10th, members of the rap group 2 Live Crew are arrested and charged with obscenity after a performance in a Hollywood, Florida nightclub. Do you remember this, Lacey?
I mean, I remember that. I remember vague thing. I don't know what they did, but
they had their album was pretty crude, but we loved it. And they had a famous song that says, "Say hey, we want some pee."
Oh,
yeah, and they were very popular. And of course, someone out there was upset, and it got made news. But they said, we're going to play anyway, and they got arrested. Hollywood, Florida. I think they were eventually released, but then they go on to, in their own way, they decide to sample "Born in the USA" and said "Banned in the USA," and they actually released a video, and they all wore like American flag, like leather jackets or something like that. So they had "Banned in the USA," if you remember that. So, and I actually did have this album.
I'm pretty sure that what is it? Who is it? Megan Thee Stallion and Nicki Minaj have something to say about them getting, arrested.
Oh yeah, this stuff they did
in 1990.
Yeah, this stuff was could be kind of tame, but they were fun though. They were fun on stage. I remember their videos. They were hilarious. I like those guys. So yeah, good for them. Next, we had the breakout star Mariah Carey release her debut album June 12th. Would go on to the top of the Billboard 200 for 11 consecutive weeks. And that Vision of Love song was so popular. Also, I remember the video. It was crushing on her a little bit. I'll be honest with you there. But she ended up going, she was everywhere. We're going to have a little more update coming shortly in this episode about an appearance that she made. But do you remember how big she was, Lacey?
The only song of hers that I know is the one from Love Actually.
Ah, gotcha. Okay.
The one about All I Want for Christmas Is You.
I did. I loved her curly, wavy hair that she had. I just thought that was a great look. So, but man, her voice and her octave is just one of the best I've ever heard. She had pipes. But let's just put it that way. She knows.
Doesn't she have like the full like an 8-octave range or something? She's got like a special amount of distance on the chords or something.
Oh yeah. She's and I remember this because I don't remember anyone before or after. Well, before anyway, that I was listening to that had that octave. Now I'm sure there's people before that and other famous artists before my time or before I started paying attention to music that had a either equal or octave. But her, that I was like, what the hell is she doing that? So yeah. Anyway, she hit it big. We'll touch on her in a little bit. But we also like to touch on the Billboard Top 100 1990 list that we have here. And we always choose a few at a time. And the ones that we have here this month are number 60 through 54. At number 60, we have Can't Stop by After 7, Black Cat by Janet Jackson, Something Happened on the Way to Heaven by Phil Collins, Just Between You and Me, Lou Gramm, I Wish It Would Rain Down by Phil Collins, You Can't Touch Us by MC Hammer, and Ready or Not by After 7. Lacey, I'm going to guess that maybe you know one, maybe two of those.
One, I know you can't touch this. I do not know any of the rest. I love Phil Collins, so I probably have heard
What's
these.
funny, he's got 2 songs in this small group
Yeah,
here.
I've probably heard these, but I don't recognize the title, so that's not. Yeah.
I should also mention too, After 7 has 2 hits in this group as well at 60
Oh, okay.
Can't Stop and 54 Ready or Not.
Well,
I
that's
don't
funny because
remember.
Ready or Not should probably be followed by Can't Stop.
I know, right? But Ready or Not, I actually remember that song. It gets in your head a little bit. So yeah, so there you go. Well, let's get into some TV. We got some stuff to talk about there. 1990 popular television, and we're going to start off with some music news and TV debuts. And as I said earlier, we have some news about Mariah Carey. So, and I remember this because I was an avid watcher of the Arsenio Hall show. And Arsenio Hall on June 1st, Mariah Carey delivers her first live television performance singing Vision of Love on the Arsenio Hall show. I don't remember I actually went and watched it on YouTube. But I do remember this event, and this was a big deal. Do you remember, were you watching Arsenio Hall at all, Lacey?
I was not a talk show kind of gal.
Gotcha.
Like any talk shows. I couldn't tell you. I know that Arsenio was probably the only one that I probably knew of. Maybe Carson, right? I mean, obviously, because 90 would that. Oh, it might have been Leno at that point. But yeah, I mean, so it would have been like Arsenio, Leno, and maybe Letterman. But I didn't watch any of those.
I was usually up at that time, but if not, I was recording the Arsenio Hall show, and the Tonight Show. I would kind of look at the TV guide and see, I want to see that, and sometimes I might set my VCR for it if I didn't watch it live. So, but I was an avid viewer, definitely, of Arsenio Hall. So yeah.
Right on.
June 6th, Nickelodeon Studios officially opens in Orlando, Florida. We have a picture of the front there. Was this? I have no memory of this. I didn't have access to Nickelodeon at the time, but I know that they started filming a bunch of TV series there, and other stuff happened. Do you remember this happening, Lacey?
I mean, I don't remember this specifically happening. I do know that I was at this point, I was like 16-ish, I was almost 17. So my sister, who was 5 years younger, would have been like, this was like perfect timing for her, because over the summer, I remember every day my sister would be watching You Can't Do That on Television and Double Dare and Pinwheel. And the song for Pinwheel.
Well, hold on. Can you hold that thought?
I know, it's coming up.
Yeah, because you brought it up. I think it was you that brought it up in May, where you mentioned Pinwheel because we were talking about some other shows in May. And I was just like, well, this is going to be interesting because I need to ask Lacey about this because, well, here we are, Pinwheel. And so here it is. Pinwheel ended its run. Pinwheel was the first show on Nickelodeon. It was about a quaint Victorian boarding house that is powered by a pinwheel on the roof. Every episode has the inhabitants of Pinwheel solve problems and play games relevant to preschoolers. And this ran from 1977 to 1990. And if you're looking at the picture here, it looks like there's some puppets as well. And of course, the cast sitting on a porch stoop, kind of like you would see on any outside, I guess, sitcom or house, but also it's a little reminiscent of Sesame Street. But I had never, ever heard of this show at all until I was doing this research here because, well, first of all, I didn't have Nickelodeon. I don't remember seeing any ads for it or anything like this. And I had one bit of trivia here, and I want to get your thoughts on this show, Lacey. Before she created the Pinwheel series, Dr. Vivian Horner was the director of research for The Electric Company, which started in 1971 on PBS. I do remember that show. For the show's second and third seasons, Nickelodeon added a variety of animated shorts in between the main puppet and actor segments. Lacey, give me your quick thoughts on Pinwheel because I'd never heard of this.
So, from what I understand, Pinwheel it had ended, and when Nickelodeon started, they didn't have a full docket, right? So they bought the rights to Pinwheel to play all the reruns, right? So and I think they put it like between their two kind of tentpole shows, which just to kind of fill, right? So it was, I want to say, I don't know which one was first. It was between like Double Dare and You Can't Do That on Television or something like that. And oh, I can't sing it because we're not supposed to sing it, but the lyrics, can I say the lyrics?
Yeah, go for it.
Say the lyrics. Okay, so it's basically pinwheel spinning around. Look at my pinwheel and see what I found, and it's just over and over and over and over.
An earbug.
Yeah, a real bad earwig. And so anytime when we'd be down at my grandparents' house, my sister would be in the other room, sitting in the bedroom on the pink shag carpet, hot pink shag carpet, with her snack, watching Pinwheel, waiting for whatever, whichever one.
It's weird because I don't remember ever being repeated on anything, but like you mentioned, You Can't Do That on TV. That got syndicated to other channels. And I was able to watch it, and also Degrassi and stuff like that. But this is just one of those shows, whatever reason, I just don't remember even, channel surfing and coming across it. So, that's cool. All right.
But You Can't Do That. So You Can't Do That on Television. And then this one, and then Double Dare with like the slime was like so big. Everybody wanted to talk about the slime. Yeah. I never saw Degrassi. Like I don't think that was on Nickelodeon, but who knows? Yeah.
Another debut, which did not last long, but we knew we definitely knew the host of it. This was on the Travel Channel, June 1st, The Great Getaway Game. After hosting two short-lived produced game shows, a revival of High Rollers and the Canadian The Last Word, Wink Martindale went back into producing and launched The Great Getaway Game on Travel Channel in 1990. 2 years after that, the program went off the air. Martindale teamed up with Bill Hillier on the Family Channel and to produce a series of interactive game shows that put an emphasis on home viewers being able to play along from home and win prizes. 4 series were commissioned, and Martindale served as host for all 4. The first to premiere were on June 7th, 1993, was Trivial Pursuit, an adaptation of the popular Trivial-based board game. I have no memory of this. I don't think I watched much of the Travel Channel, but I do remember it.
I feel like this is just mean. This is a mean TV show. This is like people on the show get to go places, and you're playing along at home, and you win like a trivia thing or whatever. You get like a mug that says the name of the place or something. Like it just that seems so mean. You can't go anywhere. You can watch us go places and talk about it. Woo! I don't know.
Well, we always saw that anyway with all the game shows that when they won trips or Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous was the worst. Well, we have another game show. I vaguely remember this. Monopoly premiered June 16th on ABC. Monopoly was an American television game show based, of course, on the classic board game. The show was created by Merv Griffin and produced by his production company, Merv Griffin Enterprises. Formerly Jeopardy contestant Mike Riley was chosen to host the series with Charlie O'Donnell as announcer. 3 separate women, Kathy Davis, Kathy Cargis, and Michelle Nicholas served as co-host and dice roller. There you go. That sounded like it would have been kind of fun. I don't know. But nowadays, though, you'd have to choose which Monopoly game you want. Do you want to play the Star Wars Monopoly game? Do you want to play the Monopoly game Atlanta? Or I even saw a Santa Barbara Monopoly game. So it's kind of funny.
I have the Supernatural one. I have the Firefly one. I have Star Wars. I think I've got Star Trek. And there might be a Die Hard one.
Oh, I'm sure there is. That was the smartest thing that Monopoly ever did, was do the themed versions of that. Yeah. That's cool.
And I definitely have the Golden Girls Monopoly too.
Ah, that's so cool. Well, guess what? We have some notable TV shows that were ending in June of 1990. And this one, for you sports ball people, the ending of NBA on CBS, which started in 1973, in case you're curious. Now, Lacey, I have no memory of this show here, but this was a show called Wolf. Came out in 89, but only lasted 1 season. And it ended June 28th, and it was called Wolf. As Tony Wolf, a San Francisco cop, is framed on a drug charge by the criminals he has been pursuing. Thrown off the force, he gets a job as a private detective working for an attorney. And so it goes back and forth there, and he has a boat that is always working on and needs repairs. And Tony Wolfe was the character played by Jack Scalia, and his co-host with Judith Hoag, who played Melissa Shaw Elliott. For those Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fans, also in 1990, she starred as April. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Have any memory of Wolf? Because I sure don't.
It's funny because when I looked at the picture, it's a little bit fuzzy. And I thought
there's not a lot of good images of this series.
But I thought that it looks like it could be Hasselhoff.
I see. Yeah, from
just a little Hasselhoff-esque, right?
Yeah.
It sounds like
they had the Hasselhoff hair, so yeah, Jack was.
I was kind of getting that like squint going on, trying to see is that I don't know. I don't remember it, but sounds like it could have been fun.
The next show, Lacey, is one that I jumped on right away. Unfortunately, it didn't last very long, and there was a reason why I jumped on it. And that was the TV series that was unfortunately lasted one season called Hardball.
Mm-hmm.
Starring John Astin. He plays Charlie Battles. For those of you that don't know, of course, John Astin is the elderly cop in the Beverly Hills Cop movies. All right. And we have Richard Tyson, who plays Joe Kazarowski. And Charlie Battles is a veteran cop who is about to be assigned to a desk job when he is teamed up with Hotshot Kaz. Together, they team up, constantly being at odds over how to handle criminals. And Richard Tyson, of course, had his long hair at the time, and he's rocking a motorcycle. And it looks like I think it was on Friday nights. I know I recorded the show, but I was a Richard Tyson fan because of a couple of reasons. One of the reasons was one of my favorite guilty pleasure movies of all time. My wife likes it too. Is the 1988 erotic thriller Two Moon Junction with Sherilyn Fenn. Have you ever seen this, Lacey?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, Richard Tyson was a good-looking guy. He was the hot carny coming through town, and the Southern Belle. He sweeps off her feet, and stuff happens, and things kind of go sideways. But it's a good one. And of course, Richard Tyson also was the villain in Kindergarten Cop. So, but this show allowed him to kind of cook a little bit and be charismatic. And I wish I could have seen more from Richard Tyson. He's especially during this time. And this was such a Kevin show, and unfortunately, I don't think it ever repeated very much. And I don't know if it ever was released on DVD or whatever. But I would watch this show if I could right now. So yeah.
John Ashton, he had a kind of he did get kind of pigeonholed into playing a lot of cops.
He did.
He did well, but he played a lot of cops.
Well, I think his role on, of course, definitely Beverly Hills Cop 1 and 2 were so memorable.
Yeah.
And I feel that they're like, you know what, we need kind of the elderly guy. Let's go ahead and get him.
Well, I wouldn't say elderly. He's probably 45 in that picture.
Okay.
So let's call him the elder statesman.
Okay. He looked older than
between the two.
Do you remember this TV series at all?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
I do think that his hair is something like
yeah.
something.
Oh, hey. Yeah. It was always wet too.
Yeah.
If you're talking about Richard Tyson. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we always like to discuss the top-rated TV series in 1990, and we pick a few at a time. And the first one that we have here, of course, we all know this one. Who's the Boss? Was ranked number 19 out of the top 30 at this time, with about 15 million views in the household there. And we know about Tony. He's a retired baseball player, becomes the housekeeper to Angela Bauer, and advertising executive in New York. Together, they raise their kids, Samantha and Jonathan, with the help of Mona, Angela's man-crazy mother, and of course, eventually Tony and of course
Angela
get together. So yeah. So love that series. I watched it religiously. Did you?
Oh, I loved it. It was super fun. It was one of those ones that it wasn't it like at 7:30 or something. It was early in the evening. It was like when you'd kind of like rush to finish dinner so you could see it.
Okay. Yeah. I think it was on earlier too. Yeah. Which I liked. I thought was good.
Yeah.
Too, so yeah. All right. The next high-rated television program was, of course, the CBS Sunday Night Movie. Was ranked at number 20. And I have a list of the movies that came out during the CBS Sunday Night Movies during 1990. The first one we had in January was the TV movie The Operation. Don't know what that is. February we had Miracle Landing. uh, March we had Common Ground. April we had Crossing to Freedom. Then they would sneak in some actual movies from the theater. And what's interesting about this is sometimes maybe you didn't have it on video or it wasn't available, so you got a chance to watch them on the CBS Sunday Night Movie. And the one that came out in May was The Untouchables from 1987. Then there was like a little break during the summertime, and then in November we had another feature film, Fatal Attraction, followed by the next week Moonstruck, and then we went back to TV movies in December. We had The Fatal Image, we had the movie Donor, and then last but not least on December 23rd, 1990, we had Always Remember I Love You. Now, I didn't go and search for all these films, but if you want to, go ahead. But I'm sure some of these are very interesting. Lacey, you're looking at this going, I think I know what these are.
Yeah, I Always Remember I Love You. That had what's his name? Not Craig Shipper. Stephen Dorff, who was born the day before me in the same hospital. Yeah, he's born in Atlanta. But it was Stephen Dorff, Patty Duke, right? So it was one of those kind of made for TV kind of deals. I do love how if you look at the one that says Common Ground, it says part 1 of 2, but then you keep going through and it doesn't look like part 2 played that year. So I don't know if they played it in 91, but
yeah, and I got that list off of Wikipedia, unless it came out later or it just came out back to back, and Wikipedia didn't get it updated. But I always find that interesting, though. The CBS Sunday night, those are big deals. The Sunday night movies, the Monday night movies, for people that weren't into sports ball, they were big draws, and they got a lot of ratings. So there you go. Well, let's go ahead and get into our next segment here, which is why we're here. This is this Fandom Podcast Network, and of course, we are celebrating the movies of 1990. So let's go ahead and get into the movies. Now, we have some movie-related, celebrity news here. We like to talk about the celebrity film debuts in the movies of 1990. And we have George Lopez in Ski Patrol. We have Asif Manvi from No Retreat, No Surrender, 3 Blood Brothers. We also have Margot Martindale in Days of Thunder. And Samantha Mathis in Pump Up the Volume, which we'll be discussing in a month or so. I did not know that was her first movie. I know she'd probably done some TV, but another crush of mine, Lacey, just saying.
Oh, right on.
Yeah. We also have some
Margot Martindale. She's one of my very favorite actresses.
Yeah. Remind me, I'm trying to remember who she is. I can't remember her face.
She's been in like legit like everything. She was one of the Dixie Mafia in Justified. She was on Dexter.
Oh, I'm looking at a picture of her right now. Yeah.
On Dexter,
she was in Justified, the Dixie Mafia girl. I remember her name. Yeah.
And then she was in Dexter. She played the woman who worked in the police station. She was also in Rocketeer as well. Oh, okay. She's been in like everything. Yeah.
And I did talk about Savages. She was in that as well. So yeah, cool. Awesome. Yeah. She had a that woman face, and I didn't know her name. So until now, so there you go. All right, we do have some entertainment news before we get into the films here. And one of those is June 1st, we had CGI technique is expanded with motion capture. Here, I'll put this up on the thing here so people can read. Cool. If you're watching the video. CGI characters used in Total Recall. Motion capture for CGI characters used in Total Recall. And we're going to talk about that one as well as this one here. June 15th, following a massive media and marketing blitz, Dick Tracy is released. Walt Disney Studios chairman Jeffrey Katzenberg expresses disappointment in the studio memo that noted the film had cost about $100 million in total to produce, market, and promote. And with its disappointing performance claimed, quote, "We made demands on our time, talent, and treasury that, upon reflection, may not have been worth it. End quote. We'll talk about Dick Tracy in just a moment here. June 22nd, the use of real-time computer graphics or digital puppetry to create a character in a motion picture is performed in RoboCop 2. Another film we'll be discussing. So, well, speaking of the films, let's go ahead and get into them right now. All right, June of 1990. We got some good ones here to talk about. And the first one is one I had never seen before, but I ended up getting it on Blu-ray. That is Frankenhooker, a comedy. Its theatrical run only did about $146,000 in the theater. Terrifying tale of sluts and bolts is what the cover says. Also on the cover of the poster, it says, if you only see one movie this year, it should be Frankenhooker. Bill Murray. Did he really say that? I don't know. But the plot of it is a medical student sets out to recreate his decapitated fiancée by building her a new body made of Manhattan Street prostitutes. A medical student dropout loses his fiancée in this tragic mower incident and decides to bring her back. Unfortunately, he can only save her head. So he goes to the district there and he picks up some girls and he throws a party with a lot of drugs. Stars James Lawrence, Joanne Ritchie, and Patty Mullen. Now, apparently in the trivia, Lacey, Bill Murray is a big fan of this movie and publicly endorsed it around the time of its release. Some other trivia I have here is the film ran into trouble when it went before the MPAA ratings board, and Hennelotter recalls, I'm guessing that is the director. Yes, that is the director. Recalls that calling the production company and saying, congratulations, you're the first film to be rated S for shit. Producer James Glickenhaus fought back and brought the feud public. The MPAA ultimately gave the film an X rating. They refused it and released the film unrated instead. Two more we got here for you. Elizabeth is the last name of Shelley. This is the homage to Mary Shelley, the author of the original Frankenstein. And before getting into acting in 1987, Patty Mullen was Penthouse Pet of the Month for August of 1986. Lacey, have you seen this movie?
I have. It was a long time ago, and I'm pretty sure I cut it off after about 45 minutes. It was just, there was too much gore, and it wasn't funny, and it was very of its time in the misogyny of it all. And it was. It's hard to watch. Even then it was hard to watch.
I had it playing while I was doing some other stuff though, but I there's a part of me that found it entertaining. But the best part of it.
It's hard, Kevin.
What's that?
Sorry, nothing.
Well, there's a couple of funny scenes in it I do have to mention. So he goes and gets a bunch of he buys a bunch of hookers basically, and the pimp is kind of waiting downstairs, and he takes them up to this party, and there's this really bad version of some crack cocaine that starts making people explode, which is not what he wanted. So there's body parts everywhere of all of the hookers that took the cocaine, and he's trying to find the best of the pieces to take back to basically create his Frankenhooker girlfriend. So that was interesting. But the funny thing is there's this vat of goo that he puts all the parts in, and the big mean pimp comes up to kind of collect and find out what's going on. And the thing tips over and all the parts are kind of come alive and like scoop them into it.
Yeah, it's
the best part about this though, to be honest with you, was the special features of the Patty Mullen character who plays, I'm just going to put her, I think she calls herself hooker number one. Mm-hmm. She actually, and what was funny was that she actually complained about the lead star and the woman that he had to kiss in this. And she was really professional about, this is everyone's time. We're here to do a job. Mm-hmm. And she actually had Polaroids from the set of like a lot of the cast dummies that were used for the body parts that would explode. And they had to make her body cast, and they put it in a certain way because they would show her mannequin explode right after her real pose was taken. So she actually had to do the pose of her mannequin before she exploded. So there you go.
Right on.
Next we talked about China O'Brien a few months ago, Lacey. Yeah, there you go. You're holding up the Blu-ray version you have there,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is
China
that
Brand 1 and 2 4K.
I got the old cheap DVD here, the Hong
Right
Kong
on.
Boulevard version. Yeah, so I had seen the second one with the original one. This, of course, is starring Cynthia Rothrock and Richard Norton again, if I remember correctly here. This time, China O'Brien has trouble with a dealer who puts a price on her head because she has spoiled an important drug deal of his with all the.
Poor fella.
I know, right? But
Hmm.
all the world's criminals will not be enough to catch up to China, one of the masters of martial arts. Of course, starring Cynthia, Richard Norton, and Keith Cook. Now, I do have one bit of trivia here. Some of the action scenes were filmed following the initial shoot to ensure that the movie would be long enough. These scenes included a fight between Keith Cook and Billy Blanks, the latter of which was cast at short notice for specifically this scene. And I remember Billy Blanks, he was the guy that went on to do those exercise videos. Do you remember that? Yeah. So, I love Cynthia in these though, but yeah, it's paint by numbers kind of, action hero doing stuff. But I love watching her do martial arts. She's wonderful. Thoughts?
The only thing that could have made this more 1990s would have been if her co-star was Michael Dudikoff.
Like, why didn't they do that? We talked
Right?
about that in
American
Couch Potato Theater that we just did for American Ninja 1 and 2. Check it out on the Fandom Podcast Network.
Yeah, like why the two of them were never paired up? Like, I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know why either. Yeah. Unless they did, and it's a movie that I bypassed me. So yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
Well, next film was huge, especially for Arnold Schwarzenegger, and that is Total Recall. Made over $261 million. Lacey's holding up. It looks like a 4K there. Let me get you on that, Lacey. Hold that up. There you go. Nice.
Yep.
That's a good looking 4K there. Before I go, I don't know if we need to go into the plot or not, but I've got the original DVD here that I had for years, right? But I'm a little sentimental because I like this movie. But I did also pick up the 4K Blu-ray as well, just like you did, because it also came with digital. But I had this as well, the Steelbook special Blu-ray Total Recall of the alien hand that he has to put his hand in to ignite all the stuff on Mars.
Nice.
But I bought it used, so if it came with other stuff, I have no idea. But yeah, but there's some special features, a little bit on this, a little bit on that.
Were you at Suncoast when they did the tin?
I remember the tin on the DVD tin, right? I did own that.
Yeah, yes. I did too. And it was one of those things where when the Blu-ray came out, I was like, oh, thank God I can get rid of this damn tin.
Because it was awkward to open because you had to open it up,
Well, and you had to twist it to get it to come apart because it was just too. It was a circle. It looked like Mars, right? And and it was like one of those old you remember those nonpareil tins? Those little
yeah,
that's what it was. And you twist it, and by the time you got it open, the disc would fly.
Yeah.
And
it was one of the most
roll off at you.
It looked really cool, but then it was just weird to put on your rack of Blu-rays and DVDs.
It was not easy to it was not an easy display item.
So we kind of know the plot here. Douglas Quaid is haunted by a reoccurring dream about returning to Mars, and there's a bunch of action. There's some very funny stuff in this. I love this. Directed by Paul Verhoeven, of course, based on Philip K. Dick's novel. Stars, of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sharon Stone, Michael Ironside, Rachel Tickerton, and, of course, Ronnie Cox. Got a little bit of trivia here for you. After seeing Sharon Stone's performance as Laurie in this movie, director Paul Verhoeven would cast her in the movie Basic Instinct from 1992. Due to her availability to play a character that could change from a timid, charming sweetheart to a diabolical person and back again at a moment's notice. He also stated this was the way Sharon Stone is in real life.
Nice.
Arnold Schwarzenegger was so impressed on how much dedication Sharon Stone had in training for her character role that he even referred to her as the female Terminator. She was inducted into the Stunt Woman Association as an honorary member. And this was one of the last major Hollywood blockbusters to make large-scale use of the miniature effects as opposed to CGI. It was also one of the first major Hollywood blockbusters to use CGI, mainly for the scenes involving the X-ray scanner and have it look photorealistic. Composer Jerry Goldsmith considered Total Recall to be one of his best film scores. Very memorable film score. And last but not least of the trivia, the original cut of this movie was given an X rating by the MPAA for excessive violence. Some violence was trimmed and different camera angles are used in some of the more over-the-top scenes. And the movie was then re-rated R. Lacey, give me your thoughts on Total Recall.
Total Recall was fun. It kind of felt like, and we all know Paul Verhoeven and some of his other films, like he's but it definitely felt like a 15 to 17-year-old boy wrote the script. Like, you know, a hooker with 3 boobs and like all kinds of, you know, it felt like it was a little bit it's probably just of its time, just because, you know, that point they were still sort of spoon feeding things to the audiences. You know, there wasn't a lot of, you know, now they'll drop you in the middle of a scene and you just catch up. But back then they had to, you know, enter stage left kind of a thing. But it was fun. It was one of the few I dig. I don't even know how to describe it. I prefer Schwarzenegger when he's running towards the action, not when he's running from the action. So this is not one of my favorite Schwarzenegger movies, but it's an entertaining film.
It's interesting to say. I never really noticed that before. Yeah, he is running a lot and he's running away. And it's interesting because in The Running Man, he does run away, but then he runs toward.
Right, sure. Yeah.
That's an interesting point. You know, one of the things that I noticed about this film was I remember 87 RoboCop kind of being the movie that desensitized me towards really intense movie violence.
And introduced you to Ronnie Cox.
What's that?
And introduced you to Ronnie Cox, who's also in this.
Yeah. And it was great because Ronnie Cox was a villain in both films, and yet he was so cool in the Beverly Hills Cop movies. But this one was another one that was like a close second. Like, wow, this violence is pretty intense. You know, a lot of gun violence in it as well, and of course Richter getting his arms chopped off, which I thought was great. By the way, I just have to comment about the hooker with the 3 boobs. That's what everyone remembers a lot about this movie. They even had to like make reference to it in the remake and stuff like that. And I've seen people cosplay that as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but they have to put like the strip over the nipples if they're in public and that type of thing.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. Real quick though, the one thing that stood out for me about this movie is how impressive the sets were. They filmed this in Mexico. And I love the whole like city subway stuff that was used for like the real locations, but the actual Mars and some of the sets were so impressive and just massive.
You know, it's one of those things that he's not the good guy. Like he's not a good guy.
Yeah.
He volunteered for this because he was trying. Well, it's a whole thing.
I mean, Quaid was not good, but then like because he lost his memory, he became good. You know, it worked out.
But also, like some of the freak stuff didn't really.
The ones that were living in the domes that were
right. They called themselves the freaks or the mutants or whatever. And it was one of those things where, like the guy with the thing in his stomach that just was so.
Quado.
Yeah, and then the whole idea was that the solar rays was what made it happen, because people couldn't afford to like not have the solar rays in their house. Right.
And air was being charged for and stuff like that. Yeah.
It just seemed a little. I mean, now don't get me wrong. It's
sounding like you're not liking the movie, to be honest.
It was an interesting social commentary at the time, because we had a lot of issues with the public works and stuff like that going on with price hikes on electric and gas and water and all that kind of stuff. And so that was kind of what was in the news at that time. So I feel like it was kind of a little pointed. Yeah.
I thought there were some clever action scenes. I love the wristband watch that did the hologram of you, and they used that to some comedic things. But I like the fact that they actually said, "Hey, yes, there's some alien artifacts here on Mars, and that's why there's going to be water, but you got to turn it on." And Cohagen was like, "Nope, that's not happening." And I like that kind of little twist to it too. But I got to tell you though, I was watching this, I was asking my wife, she wanted to watch this with me, and Aaron was like, I don't need to watch it again. I can tell you in like 5 seconds of what it's all about. And I'm like, really,
Yeah.
what? This movie, Arnold makes a lot of noises in so many ways, and of course he's famous for the pulling the thing out of his nose, and the having the machine. And I laugh so hard because she's like, "Is that the plot, right?" I'm like, "Okay, sure, yeah."
Nice, right on.
She does it better than I did, though. So there you go.
Now, is this the one that Glenn? Oh gosh, the new It guy, the new
Glenn Powell. No, he is doing the remake of The Running Man.
Got it. Okay.
Which is coming out in 2025 November. So
got it. Okay.
Glenn Powell. Yes. Next, here we go. We got a sequel here. June 8th. Another 48 Hours. Made over $152 million. Oh, there you go. You got the 2-pack there, right? Yeah.
Well, it was the other one's still on the wall, but yeah.
Okay, well, hold on. Hold yours up there. So you got another 48 Hours. Okay, so is that a Blu-ray?
Yes, and the other one's probably right.
Gotcha.
There.
I decided I don't have the Blu-ray or 4K if these are available. I just stuck with the DVD 2-pack here, the 48 Hours.
Right on.
48 Hours. So yeah, there you go. Is that Blu-ray? Does it have pretty good special features on it?
No, I mean there's like a director conversation, but that's about it.
Well, returning, of course, is Eddie Murphy and Nick Nolte, also director Walter Hill. Jack Cates once again enlists the aid of ex-con Reggie Hammond, this time to take down the Iceman, a ruthless drug lord operating in the San Francisco Bay Area. Also co-stars Brian James, Andrew Divoff, and Bernie Casey. A little bit of trivia here. The last of 7 Eddie Murphy movies in a row to open up at number 1 in the box office. His next number 1 movie would be The Nutty Professor in 1996. Reportedly,
because this was not a super great movie. Just saying.
What's that? I'm sorry, Lacey. What was that?
Maybe it's because this was not a super great movie.
We'll get into that. Reportedly, Eddie Murphy paycheck for the original 48 Hours was $450,000, while Nick Nolte's salary was $1 million. Well, for the sequel, Nolte reportedly got $3 million, and Eddie Murphy received $9 million. So Eddie Murphy became the bigger star, of course. The original work print was 145 minutes long. That is long. It was cut by either Walter Hill or Paramount down to 120 minutes. And a week before its summer theatrical release, an additional 25 minutes were cut out by Paramount, making the final theatrical version 95 minutes long. Now, I hadn't seen this one in a while, Lacey. I'd seen the original one, of course, because the original one is just so good and so funny and stuff. And I remember seeing this one in the theater after I watched the original on VHS. And I remember liking it and stuff like that. And of course, the poster says the boys are back in town, of course, including the song and everything. But this movie feels a little disjointed, and it's not quite as funny. And it doesn't seem to have as much heart as the original. What are your thoughts?
I had not watched these until you had mentioned. I think we were doing, what was it, 85? When was the first one? 85, 4, something?
84, yes.
Yeah. So I got the 2-pack because I was like, all right, cool. I'll watch both of them. And I mean, they're definitely film history, right? These are tentpole movies. These are, when you talk about Eddie Murphy, if you ask 5 people, at least 2 of them are going to name 48 Hours as one of the movies, right? So I thought, well, I'll just go ahead and get them on Blu-ray, and if nothing else, they'll be part of the film history of the collection, because the collection was bored by the first one and just desperately bored by the second one.
Really? You didn't like the first one?
Huh? No. Wow. It was. The problem is that watching this for the first time now,
right?
Like it's just 2 dudes who are like playing the race card back and forth. Neither one of them in a positive way. Not joking like, we're So it's like a lot of racial stuff. Every woman who was in there was either like called a prostitute or was a prostitute, or there was just it was very of its time. And I think
definitely very
maybe. I would have liked
definitely,
it, but
yeah, definitely very of its time.
yeah,
You know,
watching it the first time now, not no.
you know what's interesting about the first one film, the famous scene in the first one is Eddie Murphy pretending to be a black cop in that, you know, hillbilly bar basically, and they tried to recreate that in this in another 48 hours in a different manner but similar, and it just didn't quite pay off, you know, and it seemed like it was much more violent too. I noticed it
Yeah.
was this one they knocked up the violence, which I don't know if that helped at all.
I rewatched it about 3 weeks ago just so that I could have it fresh in my mind for this, and I legitimately cannot tell you what was in the movie.
Yeah, it's kind of forgettable a little bit. Yeah,
nothing in it that was like,
yeah.
oh yeah. Now don't get me wrong, I love Nick Nolte. I love Eddie Murphy. You know,
Yeah.
some of their stuff's great. You know, and Nick Nolte's got some really fun little. You know, he's done some comedy and some action,
Yeah,
whatever. I love both of the actors. This just the script was just bleh.
Yeah. It's a lot of people that are fans of the original are not fans of this one. So, but it definitely,
what happens when I'm not a fan of either one?
yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's okay. That's why you're here.
Mhm.
You know, we we've had some interesting takes on what we've split on a lot of stuff before too. But
Sure.
yeah, I'm not a fan of the second one. The first one I love though. I think it's good. All right, the next one, this was a fun one to return to. I had not seen this in a long time. I remember being at the theater watching this on opening night. It was such a big deal, and that, of course, is Dick Tracy. There you go. Released June 15th, made a little over $162 million. As Tess Trueheart wants to settle down to a quiet life with her boyfriend, Detective Dick Tracy, but there's something pretty rotten going on in town, with someone pretty rotten behind it. And Tracy has his hands full with the likes of villain Big Boy Caprice and with the almost irresistible Breathless Mahoney. Directed, of course, Warren Beatty. Stars Warren Beatty, Madonna, Al Pacino, Charlie Corsimo, and of course Glenn Headley. You are holding up the Blu-ray there. I have the Blu-ray too as well.
Yay.
But Lacey, as I always say, when I do, I used your idea. Is I bought the 2-pack Blu-ray and I took the DVD and made a 2-pack of the Blu-ray and DVD, just like you told
Nice.
me to. Let's get some trivia here first before we go into this, because we got an interesting topic I want to discuss about this. So Warren Beatty personally bought the film and the television rights to Dick Tracy for $3 million in 1985. And he has retained them to this day. And we're gonna expand on that. Now, AI overview here. I guess we'll do that now because this is interesting. Well, hold on before I get into that, because that's a separate discussion that I do want to get into. So let's do this first. Al Pacino has stated that Madonna flashed him during rehearsals for this movie, opening her coat to reveal that she was naked underneath. Pacino joked that when he is old, which is now, if he is observed with a
beatific,
if he has a smile on his face, it will be because he's recalling that incident. So do you think now he's recalling an incident more than usual?
You know what? I suppose.
For the film's nationwide midnight premiere, moviegoers had to purchase T-shirts at the theater in advance, imprinted with an Admit One ticket, and the T-shirt had to be presented to gain admission. No tickets were to be sold at the premiere showing, but some theaters cheated and sold tickets for that evening. Do you remember this at all? Because I don't. They didn't do it at my theater.
Yeah, I remember that other theaters did it. I remember the theater that I was in did not get the shirts.
Interesting. I wonder how much those...
And it was an AMC. Like, this is an AMC theater when I was working in 90. Yeah,
which is considered a big chain even at that time. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Gene Hackman turned down the role of Lips Manless because he couldn't bear being directed by Warren Beatty again after his experience on Reds in 1981. I think Jack Nicholson would say the same thing, to be honest with you. Now, before we talk about how he still retains these rights, I want to just get your thoughts on the movie itself, Lacey.
This was a Hollywood Boys Club movie. Basically, I mean, the number of insanely huge stars that were in this movie for seconds of screen time. with Pacino and Madonna and
William Forsythe too,
right, and Dustin
bad.
Hoffman. Like, there's just a huge cast.
Dustin is Mumbles, yeah,
right. And that's the thing. You put Dustin Hoffman in a movie where he goes, and you can't tell it's him. Like, they had so much prosthetic, like all the just different prostheses. So it was. I kind of feel like, you know, Warren Beatty was just going through his date book, you know, just his address book, calling people and saying like, "Hey, I got this thing. Wouldn't it be great if like all these huge megastars came in and did these teeny tiny little cameos?" Like, yeah. Okay. It was a fun movie to watch when you were 16 or 17 years old, because it looked like a comic strip. I mean, they did it right in that it looks like a comic book, or a comic strip. Between just like the yellow jacket and the cars were amazing, and the machine guns with the giant circular magazines and all that kind of stuff.
The Tommy gun, as they call it.
Yeah, the Tommy guns. Yeah. And then, I mean, adorable, sweet little Charlie Corso as the kid. And wasn't it Glenn Headley? Right, she was the girlfriend, or the, huge cast. Yeah. And it's one of those ones where I can watch it. I mean, I watched it way back then, and I think I maybe watched it probably in around like 2005 or so, just randomly when I got this DVD or Blu-ray. And then I watched it the other day. And I think every 15 years is a solid, good time frame to watch this movie.
It's interesting you say that, because I think that was a similar time frame for myself. The last time I saw this might have been on television or on a DVD. No, probably television or something, because I remember getting the DVD more recently and then upgrading it to the Blu-ray, because I've been meaning to get around to watching it. And one of the things that I loved about this film, though, is the makeup and the set designs, because they did a really good job of basically bringing a cartoon strip to life with all the bright colors and the set pieces. And what's funny too is, after I did earlier this year, my wife and I did that Warner Brothers tour in Hollywood. I recognized some of the backlots that they were using, you know, and redressing and stuff. And I thought the costumes were great. And but the movie kind of drags a little bit. It's a little kind of blah in some parts, but it's more of one of those movies you watch to be entertained visually for me.
Yeah, but I mean, it did win 3 Oscars.
Yeah. What was it for? Like set decoration? Or
art direction, set decoration was the first one, and then best makeup, of course. Yeah. And then the Stephen Sondheim for original song, Sooner or Later. But and it was nominated for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 Academy Awards. So nice. You know, I mean, it's, and I don't think that this, not to be rude, but I don't think that this movie gets a lot of Academy Award nominations if it didn't have all of those ridiculously huge A-list actors in these tiny, tiny little roles. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it would have gotten those if he had cast it like kind of a blind casting.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it definitely would not have gotten the attention. I agree with you on that. Yeah, but it was impressive. So yeah, but I felt like this was like basically a Warren Beatty vanity piece too, like some other films that he's done. But this was a pet project for him. So speaking of, why hasn't there been any other people trying to take on Dick Tracy? Well, that's because Warren Beatty won't let anyone, because he owns the rights and he plans on keeping him. But I had to ask Google AI why this is a thing, and I want to get your thoughts on this. So AI says Warren Beatty, through various legal agreements, retained the rights to Dick Tracy. He does this by occasionally reprising the role of Dick Tracy in surreal special appearances, like the quote Dick Tracy special. Tracy zooms in on Turner Classic Movies. This approach allows him to keep the rights and potentially pass them down to his children. These appearances are believed to be a way to maintain the rights to the character and prevent them from reverting to other parties. So there's a statute of limitations, I guess, on the rights, unless that's why we've gotten some really bad movies for superhero movies.
Right. Well, that's what Sony did with Spider-Man, and then all the different villain stuff is they have to use it or they lose it.
Yeah, exactly. So I remember every now and then, I remember this happening, and it would show up. And I got a picture here on the YouTube here, and you could see Leonard Maltin up there with Turner Classics here. I'm forgetting the guy that hosts the Turner Classic, guy that knows his stuff. My dad always watches the show, but this is how he keeps the rights. Lacey, I want to get your thoughts on this. This is funny.
I've seen one or two of those randomly. And I never, I didn't clock it, as something. I just figured it was, potentially like a charity thing or just something random. It didn't occur to me that he was doing it to keep the rights. I
didn't either.
For nothing, but like, I don't know that anybody's like clamoring for the rights to it. You know what I mean? Like, if it didn't do well originally, and if he was going to do something with it, it's been 35 years. He could have done something with it by now. Like he could have recast it and or something.
It's interesting too, because the reason why, if the rights did fall to someone, it would be interesting because he did a great job visually portraying these, but the story, and I think he himself kind of hurts it too a little.
Well, it's one of those things when you do a classic or like golden age, I guess, comic movie, right? These are original serial comics, right? So you look at like Brenda Starr with Brooke Shields. You look at this one with Warren Beatty. You've got The Shadow with Alec Baldwin. You got The Rocketeer, right? You got the Phantom.
You said The Phantom, right?
Yeah, The Phantom, The Shadow,
the golden age of heroes. Yeah.
And so the thing is, unless you have a story that's really going to push it along, like Rocketeer did great. Right. And it's got a cult following. The Shadow did fantastic. Love The Shadow. Fantastic.
That's good. Yeah.
The Phantom, I mean, you mentioned Billy Zane to people, and if they don't say Titanic, they're going to say The Phantom.
It's true.
And he's fantastic in the role. And they actually did I don't know, about 7 years ago, they did a remake of it, or a continuation or whatever.
I would like
this had the story.
Yeah, I think Dick Tracy is one of those that I think that they could do, but I don't know. I feel like it was done, and then maybe we should just let it be. And if he ever gives up the rights, it would be interesting. I could see a TV series maybe being done, and maybe he would let that happen, but I doubt that happened. He wants to give the rights to his children. What are they going to do with it? That he could.
Right.
So I don't know.
Well,
anyway.
It's hard to take seriously. I think that's another problem. Because like him and Brenda Starr, the costumes were so silly. The bright yellow, like you can't be a private detective and wear bright shock yellow. Like you're going to be noticed. The whole idea of being a detective and it's also because you're only as good as your villains. And when you have to have 13 villains to make one movie, it's schizophrenic.
Well, in this picture here, of course, we have him doing the Dick Tracy special. And I'm bringing that out because Leonard Maltin is in that picture there. And of course, Leonard Maltin is a renowned movie critic, and I watched him all the time. And I'm bringing him up again because he makes a cameo in this next film, Lacey. Gremlins 2, the new batch, made little over 41 million in June of 1990. And the Gremlins are back, and this time they've taken control of New York City media mogul's high-tech skyscraper. Director Joe Dante and Chuck Jones. Stars, of course, Zach Galligan, Phoebe Cates, and Howie Mandel apparently is in it as well. So, there you go. And as I mentioned, Leonard Maltin appears himself repeating his criticism of Gremlins 1984 while he holds a video version of the movie. However, his rant is cut short when the Gremlins pounce on him as a result. In his annual movie guide, he gave this movie 3 stars out of 4 and refers to the scene as a gratuitous cameo, though he doesn't say he's actually in the movie. You're holding up the Blu-ray there. I like that. Hold that up. There you go. I actually have the 2-pack DVD with the slipcase, the Gremlins, and there you go, right there. It's a little cheaper version there, but I assume you have the Blu-ray of the first film as well, right? Oh, look at that! You got the Blu-ray and DVD double pack.
Yeah, yeah. And this is one of those ones. It's so funny. I think when we talked about Gremlins, the first one, it was one of those things where I think you said like a hot take. You were like, I don't really like this movie.
Yeah.
and I was like, that's not a hot take. I don't like it either. Like, it's one of those things that's sort of quintessential to your childhood, right? because I watched it. I remember seeing it. It was, it was one of those things where like it was so cute and sweet, and then you rewatch it, 15 years later when you get it on DVD or something, and you're like, oh no, this is really dark. I mean, the dad dying and just all this stuff, and then they make a sequel to it, which is just as dark, but wildly inappropriately comedic when it comes to murder.
Murder and other gremlins being grinded up. Yeah.
Right. And just it's dark. It's dark. And
it's interesting too, because when you do sequels, they always say you got to go bigger and wider or whatever. And of course they're going to go to New York. And what's the actor that plays that's the heads that owns this building? He was Lex Luthor's father in Smallville.
Oh, John Glover.
Yeah, John Glover. So he's in this movie. He's that character that owns this building, and it's supposed to have like the best security and all that kind of stuff. And what's really funny, by the way, is John Glover has a small cameo in a film
RoboCop
coming
2.
up. RoboCop 2 in a commercial for a car steel deterrent device, basically. But anyway, so and of course it gives chance for young Gizmo to accidentally have water poured on him again, and and of course it seems like whatever happens, bad evil gremlins, of course, will come out of a good cute little gremlin. Just a couple of bit of trivia here. The filmmakers chose John Rambo as a character that Gizmo was going to imitate in the movie. Sylvester Stallone gave his permission, apparently. And unlike the PG-rated predecessor, the Motion Picture Association of America gave this movie PG-13. Gremlins 1984 is one of the movies that helped create the PG-13 rating, as it was too violent to be PG, but not violent enough for an R rating.
Right.
And director Joe Dante prefers this movie to Gremlins 1984, so he likes this one instead.
Well, okay. I
also that Warner Brothers lot tour that I took, it was paying off like so much, Lacey, because when I did that tour, they actually called out the New York scene where that Asian actor has his shop where they get Gizmo, and they return to it. I'm like, I was just there. So yeah, it's just, I'm not a fan of the Gremlin, if you want to call them a franchise, I guess. I don't know.
It's also like at one point there's one of them that's like one of the bad gremlins is like the girl, and she's trying to be like all like how do you sexualize an anthropomorphic gremlin like bat evil gremlin, like what?
Here's what I did not like about this movie. I could let the other stuff slide, but the thing that really bugs me is that it became self-aware, especially with the Leonard Maltin thing, and stuff like that. I don't like it when they do that usually, and that just did not work for the film for me. So, yeah. All right. Next we have is a film that I'd never seen before, Lacey, and that is Betsy's Wedding. We'll get to that.
Okay.
Betsy's Wedding. You're holding up. Is that a DVD?
DVD, yeah.
DVD? There you go. I actually had never heard of this film, Lacey, until I was doing the research for this podcast.
Cool.
Betsy's Wedding, and of course the picture, the poster says, the wedding picture doesn't always tell the real story. Betsy's Wedding made almost $20 million in its original theatrical run, romantic comedy. A very different fashion student, Betsy Hopper, and investment banker Jake Lovell are getting married. They want a small wedding, but their families want to give them a much more elaborate celebration. Directed by Alan Alda, writer Alan Alda, stars Alan Alda, Molly Ringwald, Joey Bishop, Madeline Kahn, Anthony LaPaglia, Catherine O'Hara, Joe Pesci, and Ali Sheedy as the older sister, cop of Betsy's Wedding.
Wait, did you say Madeline Kahn?
What did I say? Yeah, Madeline Kahn. Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, Madeline Kahn. A little bit of trivia here. Inspired by Alan Alda's own daughter's wedding and loosely inspired by the 1950 Spencer Tracy film Father of the Bride, 1950. Steve Martin's Father of the Bride movie would release the next year in 1991. The last movie Alan Alda directed. In a 2016 interview with podcaster Mark Maron, Alda indicated he didn't enjoy directing Betsy's wedding, adding, "I didn't have fun." Joe Pesci was asked once about participating in this film in an interview, and for reasons unknown, he declined to discuss his involvement in it. Interesting. So I want to get your thoughts on this first, Lacey, because I know you're a fan of this. I think you are, and you actually know about it. I did not, but it was streaming on YouTube, I think, so I was able to watch it, which was cool because I was able to watch it for free, which was nice. So, what is your thoughts on Betsy's wedding?
Okay, so I love Molly Ringwald, and this is the Molly Ringwald and Ali Sheedy coming back together, for the first time in a while. I mean, there's so many things to talk about. Okay, so first of all, the mother-in-law, the groom's mother, and Madeline Kahn as Betsy's mother, the conversations between the two of them, and watching Madeline Kahn, whose husband is like a working Joe, like he's done well for himself, but he is in construction. He's a little bit behind on some stuff. He's having to deal with some potentially not so great investors, and some situations are arising. And then the groom's parents are very like upper crusty, hello kind of people. And it's just hilarious to listen to the conversation that Alan Alda and Madeline Kahn have when they're getting ready for bed after she's had these arguments. Each time she has an argument with the other mother-in-law. And she's like, she says there's a cake. It's a lemon cake. It's a lemon cake you can't taste. Who wants a cake you can't taste? Just like, and she does those meltdowns. She's so good at those meltdowns, right? Just between Clue and
she's great. She's great in this, actually.
Oh, she's so funny. And then you see Anthony LaPaglia. I think this is probably the first time I'd seen him. I don't know. I mean, he's huge now, but I think this might be one of the first time I had noticed him. And the fact that Ali Sheedy's character is a cop and Anthony LaPaglia's character is a made man. Like, he's
a gangster. He's a gangster light,
Yeah, and
we don't see him doing anything too nefarious.
Right.
And he's under the tutelage of Joe Pesci's character, who's taking over this construction thing from Alan Alda's character. Yeah.
And it's one of those things where there's one point where as he kind of sees her and he's like he does this kind of like super gangster kind of, and of course he's an Aussie, right? He's from Australia.
Anthony Paglia is Australian, and I had no idea until my Australian wife pointed out to me. Do you know he's Australian? Because I've never seen him talk in his Australian accent. He always does these kind of Italian gangster stuff. I had no idea until about maybe 2 years ago that he was Australian. Yeah,
but he's got this just deferential way of trying to speak to Ali Sheedy, where she's like, I'm a cop, and he's like, I would be inclined to take you to a dinner.
Let's jump to the chase here on this, because this was my favorite character in this movie. Anthony LaPaglia. Yeah. Yes, he was also. I mean, he comes across as this wise guy, but he's so enamored with her. He's like almost overly cautious about not upsetting her or her family in any way. And it's actually comes to the point to where it's very charming.
Yeah, it's adorable. He's just so sweet, and he's trying not to like push the wrong buttons.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the very last thing that he said, like she says to him, is like, when the dancing and stuff. Or is that where you were going?
Go ahead.
Where she like they're dancing and he leans in to kiss her finally, and she stops him in mid kiss, and she grabs his underarm holster, and she's like, could we move this? We just need to move this. Kind of like, I understand now, but we gotta
to wrap this up for you though. You really like this movie, right?
Oh, I love this movie. It's one of my favorites, and I really, there could have been a sequel, because the funny thing was, the last thing you see is Alan Alda and Madeline Kahn looking over at the cop and the gangster, and him saying, "Oh God, please let them elope." Well, and there could have been such a fun sequel to this.
I have said this before in the many of time warps that I've done. I am not an Alan Alda fan.
Oh.
Not a fan of MASH. Never a big fan of his movies, his characterism. He's always the same guy. You know, it seems like this is the first Alan Alda film I've ever seen that I liked.
Oh, that's cool.
And the reason why is that he takes a back seat and he lets the other people shine. And he's not too Alan Alda, if that makes a thing, if that makes point. Because I'm not a fan of him. I'm not a fan of his humor. I don't find him funny. I thought that was one of the reasons why I could not stand MASH was because of him. But this, and I've seen him do some other like guest starring stuff in some other films where he's tolerable. But this is the first Alan Alda film I actually liked, and he did a great job with the casting in this. Anthony LaPaglia is very charming in this, and it surprised me with the type of character that he was. And I thought Joe Pesci was actually very funny in this too, as a lighter version of his Goodfellas character, I guess you could say.
Yeah, he was kind of halfway between his character from Goodfellas and Lethal Weapon. He was in the middle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
he wasn't quite Bernie Getz, but he was almost. Yeah.
I just have to mention before we move on, I don't spend too much more time on this, but I love the actual wedding/reception where it's raining and they have a tent, but it's not a great tent, and the water slowly starts to build down, and the tent top starts to billow down, and it's very, very funny. So,
and don't forget, this is one of the first things I had seen Catherine O'Hara, where she had that high pitched thing that she would do with her staccato voice. It was so good. Oh, those lines were so great. I don't know. Yeah.
All right. Next we have go see Betsy's Wedding. I was pleasantly surprised by that one. So yeah. Okay. Next we have RoboCop 2. Made a little over $45 million. Lacey, you're holding up one of the Blu-rays there, RoboCop 2. You have the collection. That's what that is there, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
It's 1, 2, and 3.
Gotcha. I don't have. Well, actually, you know what? I do have. I have the TV series. I picked that up recently, actually, used. And I do have. Actually, it is a collection. I do have the trilogy, I believe. But I picked up the RoboCop 2 single Blu-ray here because it says the collector's edition. He's back to protect the innocent. But what I did, guess what I did, Lacey? Is I remember this old Snapcase DVD that was it was the only thing you can get forever. Was this thing here with the cardboard cover, the ones that we hate? Well, guess what? You'll notice there's no DVD in there. You know why? Because it's in my Blu-ray 2-pack. That's why. So, after a successful deployment of the RoboCop law enforcement unit, OCP sees its goal of urban pacification come closer and closer. But as it develops, a new narcotic known as Nuke invades the streets, led by God Delirious leader Kane. As the menace grows, it may prove too much for Murphy to handle. That's the short synopsis there. Directed by Irvin Kershner, for you Star Wars fans. Of course, he directed the Empire Strikes Back. Writers were Edward Neurmeyer, Michael Miner, and yes, that Frank Miller. But of course, his treatment was toned down. Stars Peter Weller, Nancy Allen, Belinda Bauer, Tom Noonan, and Dan O'Herlihy. A little bit of trivia here. The scene in which RoboCop opens fire around the head of someone who is smoking, after which he says, "Thank you for not smoking," was actually licensed and run as a public service announcement ahead of several different films and many non-smoking movie theaters during the summer movie season that year. Because I think you were talking in the last episode, Lacey, or one of the things where this is a time where a lot of places were outlawing smoking in their premises. So yeah, there you go. The RoboCop suit for this film was constructed purely of fiberglass. This allowed Peter Weller far more freedom in terms of movement and gave the suit a far more metallic look. You can definitely pick up on that. Although the producers loved Frank Miller's version of the script, they quickly realized it was unfilmable as written. Didn't we bring that up in the spirit when we did the...
There were so many things. There have been... And I think it was just Frank Miller should never be left unaccompanied.
Yeah, he needs some supervision.
His stuff is great. Like when you draw it, you can do whatever, right? But when there's certain things you just can't. Well, you just can't.
So the final screen version was heavily rewritten and bears only a superficial resemblance to his story. However, in 2003, Miller's screenplay was adapted into a comic book series titled appropriately Frank Miller's RoboCop. And I I'm not going to read them all here, but some of RoboCop's new directives are in numerical order, and apparently they added a lot on here, like seek nonviolent solutions, avoid stereotyping, keep an open mind, smile, don't be oversensitive to the hostility of negativity of others. So yeah, that's all.
Okay. I thought you said new directors, and I was like,
new directive.
What? No, what? Okay, yeah.
Gotcha. So what's your thoughts on RoboCop 2?
Okay. I really struggled with the fact that one of the main bad guys was like a 12-year-old kid. And
kids were portrayed horribly in this film.
Right? Like this is, and again, I don't know that I had seen this movie ever before last night.
Interesting.
And I know I'm like, my nerd card's just really gonna get punched right now, but I don't think I had seen the first one all the way through until also last night.
Interesting.
I know enough about, I think it's one of those things where I thought I had seen it because I know enough about, like, because it's just so out there that I just knew things, right? But I will say when the old man was talking, I was like, that's Grigg. That's Grigg from Last Starfighter.
Yeah.
And I went and looked it up. I was like, that's Dan. I was like, what? Okay.
Dan O'Hurley, yeah.
But I struggled with the fact that the kid was like the big bad when literally nobody needed RoboCop to do anything. They could just like walk in and grab him by the ear and be like, no, and smack him with some like a ruler. I think that I have issues with sequels that turn to an addiction as being the main issue. It's like you can't think of anything else. So what if we make it drugs?
That was a theme in the 80s to early 90s.
And it was always the sequel, though. It was never the first movie. The first movie was always like a cop does a thing, and then like, the rebel cop or the whatever cop or this cop, whatever. And then the second one, it's like cocaine or what was it?
There was a lot of collateral damage in this movie as well.
Yeah, and then they legit murdered the 12-year-old.
Yeah.
They killed the kid, and then they gave him like a poignant death where he's like, I'm afraid, I know I'm gonna die. You know how that is, right? It sucks.
Yeah.
And like what is happening?
And they were trying to tie that to the memories that Murphy was having of his kid,
And then when they tried to do like the weird programming or whatever, where he was like
nice cop.
It wasn't even that. He was all like nothing. Everything he said was a tagline. Like, all of his programming was like, And
what's interesting too is that they Tom Noonan, who plays the villain Kane, was turned into the next RoboCop, but addicted to the nuke drug, and it's over the top. They really tried to go bigger and badder with this, but the whole thing with Murphy to me is one of the things I really like about the original film, and even Peter Weller didn't like the script of this movie. I've read about that, and Nancy Allen didn't have a lot more to do with it too. Some of her scenes I think that were cut. Mm-hmm. It's got some interesting visuals in it, and it's definitely violent. But it's as time has gone on. I used to watch it back to back with the original.
Oh yeah.
But as time has gone on, I don't do that anymore. I just watch the original. The original.
The first one, it had so many, and again, I just watched it last night all the way through. And so, but it had like there's some like similarities, like the Christ story, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of these like, and so I feel like RoboCop is one of those movies where you could make a meal out of that and do a dissertation.
Yeah.
Like you could really do some stuff. Like you could talk about all kinds of, political thing, and RoboCop that went well. Let's do the canon thing and cut the budget and see if we can get more out of our actors and then just copy the first one, but poorly.
Yeah. It's, it had its violence, if that's your thing, but I wanted a little bit more from the sequel. So
I will say this series, on the RoboCop disc, they actually have a really cool Q&A with both of the main stars and the director and the writers and everybody. It's got some really interesting stuff. And it was done later, so there was conversation about kind of the whole kind of oeuvre as opposed to just the first one.
Well, since we're on the RoboCop 2 thing, I did want to mention
Sure.
one thing too. I do have the collection. I have the RoboCop trilogy on DVD, which I kept because it just looks cool. I picked this up though. I got the RoboCop the series, which I have not watched all the way through. I do want to give that a visit.
Is it?
Starring Richard Eden is who it is. So yeah.
Okay.
But I do highly recommend, and I've seen this actually streaming somewhere. You'll have to look it up, but I found it on Blu-ray. RoboCop, the creation of RoboCop, the documentary.
Ooh,
really,
cool. Okay.
Really good documentary. I found it streaming somewhere when I saw this originally. I want to say last year or the year before, and it actually had come out even before that, and I just didn't know it existed. Nice. And then, of course, I do have RoboCop, the unrated director's copy from Paul Verhoeven. So I'm a fan, of course, of RoboCop. And if you can check out, it was a Screambox original series, RoboCop, the creation of RoboCop. A very extensive documentary talking about that. So, yeah. And there's always an in joke with my wife where, like, if one of us gets sick or we're not looking too good, she's like, "You're the guy from RoboCop, the toxic waste guy." So yeah, there you go. All right, well, we got a couple more to end this out for June here, and we can't, of course, end out June of 1990 without talking about fast cars, and that, of course, is Days of Thunder. Days of Thunder. So it's Tom Cruise, we know that, and it made over $157 million in its theatrical run there. Lacey, what you got for physical media there? Oh, you got the DVD and the 4K.
Yes.
I'm just rocking the Blu-ray here, but with just the Blu-ray. So I need to find DVD to put in there. So yeah.
Let me tell you something. Do not waste your money on the 4K for this one.
Really? Why?
The transfer's awful. Like it's
really
super grainy, and it's not because it's no one's fault. I mean, 90% of it is done. It's like outside. It's super bright. It's all the lights and everything. And it's really, really grainy. It's got, because they had to, I don't know enough about the cameras, but how when it's really bright, they change the f-stop, right, to accommodate the light. And I think that really affects when you do a transfer for 4K.
Well, it came across well on the Blu-ray for me when I watched the Blu-ray.
Okay.
So I
great job.
But I will trust your opinion because I know I've been to your home theater and it's amazing. So I trust your opinion on it.
Yeah. I mean, the visuals on the race stuff was great, but anything that was conversational, like faces were it was just grainy. Yeah.
Right. Real quick though, I did want to mention a shout out to one of my favorite podcasts, both Kyle and I listen to, and that is the Rewatchables with Bill Simmons. And make sure you check that podcast out because they do Days of Thunder and they just recently did it. And they go into a whole backstory of how this was just a huge set of cocaine, two hotshot producers, of course, Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer, but more Don Simpson in this, and how much money over budget they went with this film, doing stuff and creating a extravagant private gym at a hotel that they were filming in Charlotte or whatever for the scenes. And it's very, very interesting. So make sure you check it out. In case you don't know, it's about a young hotshot stock car driver gets his chance to compete in the top level. Cole Trickles enters the high pressure world of NASCAR racing. Director, of course, one of my favorite directors of all time, Tony Scott. Writers are Robert Towne and Tom Cruise. Stars Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman, Robert Duvall, Michael Rooker, Carrie Ellis, Randy Quaid, and John C. Reilly. Production began without a finished script, according to this trivia. Scenes were often written the day of filming. During one of the driving sequences, Tom Cruise actually had to read his lines off cue cards attached to the windshield, which resulted in a minor car accident. For subsequent driving sequences, Cruise was fitted with a special earpiece to have lines fed to him. And this movie was once conceived by Tom Cruise when he and Paul Newman were allowed to test one of Rick Hendrick's race cars. Tom's first lap in excess of 180 miles per hour. At Daytona for the final race of the movie, Gentlemen Start Your Engines is voiced by Burt Reynolds. And the film's disappointing box office performance was responsible for destroying the relationship between Paramount and super producers Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer. After the film underperformed at the summer of 1990, the studio angrily responded in 2 days. They insisted on an impossible lowball budget for a planned third edition of the Beverly Hills Cop franchise and asked Simpson and Bruckheimer to give Paramount $9 million of their earnings for this movie to defray the losses. The producers responded by telling Paramount they were done working there, and the studio terminated their contract, which led to them taking a new production deal with Disney via Hollywood Studios. Lacey,
you said there's Burt Reynolds. That's cool.
Yeah, Burt Reynolds. Yeah.
Right on.
Your quick thoughts on Days of Thunder?
Well, number one, we can't forget that this is one of Nick Searcy's first movies. Love him. He's been in like all the things. He was the captain in
Justified.
Justified, yeah. Right. Great actor. He's been in a million things. And it's one of those things when you see something from 35 years ago, and you're like, wow, he's got dark hair. he's got hair. But yeah, so that was cool. I love. Okay, my mind just Rooker in this is so great.
He is awesome as this.
He's so fun. Just I think the two of them. I mean, I don't know in real life, but I feel like they probably just had a really good time making it. The chemistry between the two of them, I think, was actually more fun and it felt more relaxed than even the chemistry between Cruise and Kidman. Yeah. Now, understandably, Kidman's character is supposed to be standoffish and upset about a lot of things, and so whatever. But
a brain surgeon or something like that.
Right. She was the doc.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, this is just it's a good race movie. Cary Elwes once again playing this like smarmy kind of like jackass. He played the most lovable character of all time in The Princess Bride, and everything else he does is just like creepy or like icky or jerk face or
I got you. Yeah,
self-pompous. Like he's so good in this. It's just this like slimy jerk, and I love it.
What I love about this movie is that it's paced well, and we get
no pun intended. Well. See what you did there.
Race car paced well. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
There you go.
I didn't even know it until you told me. That's funny. So also, Tom Cruise has some of the best hair he's ever had in this. I just want to say. But the standouts for me, Michael Rooker, of course, is great in this, and one of the more famous scenes is not the actual car race, but of course the wheelchair race in the hospital.
Yes.
Which is and I love that they go out and destroy some
rental cars,
which is great. But there's two actors I have to highlight in this. So first of all, Randy Quaid, he usually plays weird, funny characters. He plays kind of a serious character in this, but I like him in this. I like him as the promoter, the owner, or whatever it is. And then, of course, John C. Reilly is the other guy. And I feel like you could do a good double feature with this and Talladega Nights, because when they did Talladega Nights, I'm sure he was cast for reasons because he was in Days of Thunder, and he probably had a lot to say about that as well. So.
Okay, I can see that. I do love the fact that Randy Quaid in this, he cuts that fine line.
Yeah.
Between like just hard ass and like that's my engine in there. We're pushing that engine, Yeah.
So the other thing I have to mention too, just being a guy, Nick Kidman, just gorgeous in this, just beautiful. I miss that long curly hair that she has. And it's so funny too, because you can just see how much taller she is in this film than Tom Cruise, which I thought was kind of funny. So all right, we have one more. It's not, we're not really ending on a high note, if you ask me. But the last movie we have, of course, was released in June of 1990, is Ghost Dad, and made about $23 million, starring Bill Cosby. And you're holding up the DVD there, but I just want to mention real quick. The poster says he's been walking through doors, he's been falling through doors, he's been going through a lot lately. Get it? He's been going through a lot lately. But he's still dad, and that's Ghost Dad. Show your DVD you got there.
Yeah, this one says America's favorite dad in a spirited comedy.
There you go. I see what they did there.
Oh.
It's funny you have the actual DVD. I couldn't find this
Yeah.
movie streaming anywhere, but
Mm.
just a few weeks ago, I found knowing I was going to be doing this movie. I actually found this, I think, at a not a thrift store, but a flea
Mm.
market. I
Mm.
have this 4-movie marathon pack that
Nice.
includes the movie Pure Luck, King Ralph, For Richer or Poorer, and Ghost Dad. So I was able to watch it. I
Yeah.
don't remember ever seeing this before, but it's hard for me to watch Bill Cosby stuff now for obvious reasons. You
Yep.
know.
Yeah.
And what's really weird is, remember the first season of the Cosby Show? There's that funny, famous scene where they all lip sync to that Ray Charles song.
Mm.
And little Rudy's coming down the banister, and she's doing the wow lip sync part.
Yep.
I hear that song every now and then in Trader Joe's, and it reminds me of how Bill Cosby has fallen.
Mm-hmm.
He was he was the number one dad for a
Yeah.
while. Thursday night, we were all watching the Bill Cosby Show. But
Yeah.
before I get into that, though, let me mention that the director was Sidney Poitier. A widowed father tries to support his children after he becomes a ghost in an accident. Stars, of course, Bill Cosby, Kimberly Russell, and Denise Nichols. Trivia: Steve Martin was originally set to star as Elliot Hopper, with John Badham directing. Raven-Symoné auditioned for the role of Amanda Hopper. She was rejected as too young, but Bill Cosby liked her so much he cast her as Olivia on The Cosby Show. And this is Sidney Poitier's final film as a director, and this premiered in the U.S. in late June 1990, 2 weeks before Ghost 1990. At least 5 crew members worked on both films. And you remember when we were doing like May, or was it March or something, we talked about the movie Condition Critical, or Heart Condition. I think it was Heart Condition, with Bob Hoskins and Denzel Washington. Another ghost helps mortals out situation. All came out before Ghost, but Ghost was more popular. I didn't realize, I thought he was going to stay dead in this film, but actually he comes back to life out of his coma in the ghost. But after doing ghostly, funny shenanigans, he actually goes back into the body, and then he is saved, and he becomes, of course, human again out of the coma. Your thoughts on Ghost Dad?
It's awful. It's now, okay, it was funny in the 80s or 90, early 90. Out of all the ones we've done today, this is the most 80s, right?
Yeah.
Basically, the thing is, because it's called Ghost Dad, the opening sequence has him almost falling down the flight of stairs with the shoes. Then he almost gets hit by the truck or whatever. Then he almost gets hit. So you don't know what's like. The only thing that they did right was not immediately killing him off and having people go, oh no, oh okay, nope. That was kind of the funniest part of the whole thing. And then the fact, the elevator that he gets off just before it drops to the ground.
Right.
Then the fact that he was actually killed, quote unquote, we find out afterwards he didn't die, but was because he got into a taxi cab where the driver was a crazy Satanist.
Yep.
Who
wasn't he a cop or something? Or
no,
what was it? Something, yeah.
He was just this crazy Satan guy who was like, you know,
he was pulling some Grand Theft Auto moves in the car.
It was super bizarre.
And the car is like teetering off a bridge, and so
and he's like, "Oh, your wallet!" And then they come on,
yeah. So it's bad. It's infamously bad. Let's just put it that way.
There are many other movies. I think so. Bill Cosby and Sidney Poitier were very good friends. And I want to say that there's like 7 movies that are directed by one or the other, and the other one starring. It's like 6 or 7 movies they did together. And there's one, the best movie they made, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's they play bank robbers or safe crackers, where they're like
right
3 weeks before the statute of limitations is over, and they're about to get like some new it's just that's the one that I would be, if I was going to watch anything Bill Cosby did now, that would be the one that I would probably still watch, because Portier's in the film with him and he's funny.
Bill Cosby, to me, I remember his comedy albums before he started doing the Cosby Show.
Fatherhood. Yep.
Yeah, and I had those on cassette. I used to listen to those all the time.
Chocolate cake for breakfast, right? That's got eggs. It's got milk. Yeah.
I remember the skit he did about the go-kart races and stuff.
Yep.
So, yeah.
I remember Damn It and what is it? Damn It and Son of a Bitch or Damn It in Hell. But he and his brother thought those were their names at the beginning until they were like 7 and 10 or something.
Anyway, it's tough for me to watch anything Bill Cosby.
It's hard. Yeah. I mean, everything kind of hits different.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and wrap up this June of 1990 Time Warp. So, Lacey, I want to ask you, we've been asking this special big question for these 1990 Time Warps. These movies were released in 1990, but filmed in 1989 or earlier. Which of these films felt like an 80s film for sure, or maybe a 90s film?
I would say for the 80s, I would go China O'Brien 2.
Yeah.
Ghost Dad. Those are the two that are, well, and another 48 Hours. It's just, those three are the ones that are kind of like really dated. They're not a lot of, there's a lot of kind of things that are not okay now.
Yeah.
And then as far as the 90s, I would say Days of Thunder and Total Recall would be, I don't even think that RoboCop. I mean, maybe RoboCop because of the special effects. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me touch on that real quick. So I agree with you on Days of Thunder and Total Recall. Definitely feel like 90s films, right? But I almost feel like RoboCop 2 and Another 48 Hours could still be 90s films, only for the fact that there's sequels of 80s films that weren't good. So they're trying to recreate the capture, in the 90s type of thing. But yeah, there's a lot of dated stuff, obviously.
Yeah.
I kind of feel Betsy's Wedding was kind of a good launch for a 90s film. It didn't feel, even though we had 80s stars in it, it felt like it was getting in there. And what felt really, really 80s was Frankenhooker for sure. Let me just tell you that. I did want to mention one thing. The guy the actress who played one of the hookers, he was a special effects guy, like the Tom Savini type guy.
Yeah.
He was praised for his work, and he did a lot of really good work on that. But that one definitely felt 80 in there as well. So, yeah. All right. Well, this has been the movies and pop culture of 1990. But just want to kind of get your quick final thoughts on this month, Lacey.
This month had some bangers, man. Like, I really love Betsy's Wedding. Anytime somebody says, what's a good rom-com, what's a good, anybody says Molly Ringwald, I always ask if they've seen this movie. I'm
glad you should be doing that more often, because I'd never heard of this film.
Yeah.
And
the thing is,
it didn't seem to get any play later on,
Yeah, well, 2 years after this came out, I was working in Blockbuster, right? And so I was always trying to get people, but people were kind of turned off by the picture on the front. The picture, like the wedding dress with the top hat and the weird,
and the rain and all that.
Yeah, it just didn't I really had to kind of sell it to people.
Yeah. What else? What else?
I mean, Days of Thunder, good solid flick that gave us a little bit. Between that and his two previous films, like this gave Tom Cruise like the blockbuster, like this solidified him into blockbuster territory.
Definitely,
I think.
And he was also getting more. He was also getting more Hollywood power as well.
Right. And I want to say this felt like maybe this might have been the beginning of him insisting on doing his own stunts.
Yeah.
Like the fact that he was driving 180 miles an hour. Like, I don't think in the original Top Gun,
you could say
a lot of stuff. Yeah.
You could say he was feeding his need for speed.
I'm going to murder you with a chainsaw.
Just quick side note, of course, as of this recording, the most recent and possibly last Mission Impossible Final Reckoning with Tom Cruise, and my wife went to go see it, and then she's like, well, what happened in the previous one? So we watched the previous one, and then she's like, well, now what happened to that character? So we ended up doing the Benjamin Button watching, of these movies, and now we're on my favorite, which is Ghost Protocol, and we're going to go back.
Oh, nice.
So we're watching them all backwards, so they're prequels for my wife. It's very funny.
Oh my god,
try it. I give it a shot. It's very entertaining.
Okay.
All right, let's go ahead and tease what's happening next month. This is, of course, July. And the movies and stuff that we're going to be discussing in July of 1990 are Die Hard 2, Jetsons the movie, The Adventures of Ford Fairlane, Ghost, Quick Change, Arachnophobia, Midnight Ride, The Freshman, Navy SEALs, Australian film called Prisoners of the Sun, aka Blood Oath, Problem Child, and Presumed Innocent, with some TV show debuts like Blossom, Dream On, and Northern Exposure, and The Howard Stern Show. So make sure you check that out. Now, what we're probably going to be doing, just give you guys a little tease, I think we're going to be splitting that up into two because there's so much television to discuss. So we're going to have part 1 and 2 of July, because July had a lot of premieres for television, which was really, really weird. It kind of was setting a precedent. So make sure you guys check back with us for that. This is the Fandom Podcast Network. And of course, give us a little shout out on the QR code there. Use your phone camera if you're watching us there on YouTube. We appreciate your support there. And we can also now be found on Blue Sky at Fan Pod Network. My name is Kevin. You can find me on all of the socials, including Blue Sky at Spartan_Phoenix. Spartan Phoenix for Blue Sky. Lacey, you are on, I believe it is Letterboxd. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm a Letterboxd and Discord gal these days.
Gotcha.
And I'm on here all the time.
Well, we miss Kyle. Kyle wasn't able to join us here, so we miss you, Kyle. We'll get you next time. Kyle can be found on X at AKyleW, Instagram and Threads at AKyleFandom, and AKyleW on Discord, and at KSport16 on Letterboxd, and he's also on Blue Sky at AKyleW. Fandom Podcast Network is also on X and Instagram, and you can email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com, and also check us out on the website and on Facebook. And you can also support us. You can wear this cool Time Warp t-shirt that I have here. You can order that. I don't know if we could find the AD/HD shirt that Lacey's wearing, but maybe so. A little take on the AC/DC logo. I love that shirt though. But yeah, you can get the cool TeePublic shirt, and of course shirts from all of the other shows here on the Fandom Podcast Network. Lacey, thank you again for contributing and being awesome for us here on Time Warp. Appreciate you.
Awesome sauce, man. Had a good time.
All right. Well, until next time, everyone, we will see you back in time. Till next time. Bye.